Health and wellness are more than a destination. They are a process and a journey of personal choice. Come hear from people out in the field, doing the work, bringing health and wellness to many. Welcome, everybody. I am so delighted to have two very special guests. I was on their podcast recently, and we're going to have everything, all their information below. They are Vanessa Baldwin and Heather Crimson, and they are classical homeopathy practitioners. And I am delighted to hear their story, and also, most importantly, for all of you in the audience. And we have so many, health coaches listening that they are both health coaches. Just hearing their story and how they help people and how that works, I think is very important for us at this time with our medical system. So I just would love to have you introduce yourselves and a little bit about both of you and how you met maybe and your work.
Like most healers or people who've been on a healing journey, I had my own path of healing, really pain and suffering that led me down the alternative route. I became severely sick with several autoimmune diseases, including Raynaud's syndrome, giant bald patches in my head were alopecia areata, interstitial cystitis, and Hashimoto's. And I was really struggling with chronic pain, pretty severe depression that was suicidal, which was really caused by the pain, fatigue, and chronic insomnia. I was completely lost, alone, really scared. It was a very dark time, but after the darkness always comes the light, thankfully. But it was a long time to get to my recovery and to find things that were actually supportive. So I tried literally everything to heal, starting with conventional medicine because that was the paradigm that I was in my entire life. So that's where I went originally. And when I left doctor's office crying and them telling me they had no solutions or any supports for me, that's when I decided to try things like functional medicine and naturopathy and acupuncture and pelvic floor therapy and different energy devices. You name it, I tried it. I tried every diet there was, but nothing was making any traction for me, unfortunately. Until I found circadian biology, lifestyle practices, and principles. That was the first thing that really supported my health and healing. And that was really living with the alignment of nature, getting up and seeing the sunrise, grounding, gathering a lot of energy from nature to support my health because my voltage was just so low and we are electrical beings. I needed to plug in and recharge. So that did help me make some traction in my pain, my moods, and even my sleep quality. But after even a couple of years of doing those practices, I was still stumbling with a lot of things and still dealing with a lot of pain. So then I moved into learning about classical homeopathy. I took my first remedy. I had a big, what we call, well, Heather likes to say, it is an activation of the immune system or of the vital force. I had this big kind of activation or aggravation, as we homeopaths call it. And then I had a big amelioration. And then it was kind of serendipitous that the practitioner that I had went to see for homeopathy was doing a training. And I was like, okay, I have to know more about this so I can help people because this actually made a huge impact. It was like, I used it and I saw a huge difference. And then that's where I met Heather. So we met at that training together. And then we, became friends and we fostered a relationship. And then we were chatting more. We decided to do a podcast. Our podcast is called the Quantum Health Connection. So yeah, then we both become health coaches as well and become homeopaths and both certified in applied quantum biology. And we support people there. So yeah, let's hear from Heather too.
Wow, phenomenal introduction. So my co-host Vanessa, she's amazing. So my story is basically one of finding comfort and ease inside because I came into the world with a lot of drama, trauma, all of this sort of, very chaotic energy. And I was always seeking some kind of safety externally to feel like I could feel safe inside. So my mom had me young and then she was really heavily involved with drugs until she died, basically of drug overdose. So it was really intense. There was a lot of gnarly stuff. And then I would go be dropped off at my grandparents' house a lot of times on the weekends, and they were kind of my surrogate parents in high school, especially. But then I could really feel the difference, right, of like calm and safe, and then I'd have this huge contrast. So it was really jarring to my nervous system, but I knew that there was a way that I could feel safe eventually. And so that led me on a path to finding ways to help myself. And then, of course, it was diet at first, right? So, like in my early 20s, I'm like, deep dive into this crazy diet. It's called macrobiotics. It's a Japanese kind of diet. And I did that hardcore for 5 years. And meanwhile, my digestive issues just got worse. So if we think of digestion, right, and fear in the gut. So I always had digestive issues. My mom wasn't breastfed. I wasn't breastfed. And so we had this lifelong challenge. And then I did the diet thing. I did the other supplemental things like acupuncture and whatnot, and all the supplements. And later on in life, in my 30s, because of a life of chronic stress, because I just kept recreating, it's hard, it's a struggle, like things, I'm not safe. The subconscious was driving a lot. And then, of course, I would make choices that weren't the greatest either, that would keep perpetuating this feeling of it's a struggle to be alive. And so then I had a major health crash I was like late 30s of chronic fatigue. And like Vanessa, like I was super depressed, suicidal a lot. It's like, I can't live like this, just like so low energy. And then I would go to functional medicine. They'd give me like cortisol or something like that, which really, would really do nothing. And I was just desperate. And then eventually I found these health coaches who were doctors, and they were actually offering circadian biology. And I was like, what? How did I miss this over 38 years or however old I was then? I think I was 40 something then. And I just did a deep dive and I was all in. And that's the only thing that even moved the needle slightly for me to start to elevate my whole entire health, level of health. And so I just stayed on the course and I did more and more. And that's eventually when I realized that being a psychotherapist, sitting indoors for years with heavy energy, with the artificial light, was like the worst thing for me. So eventually I transition. Yeah, I'm transitioning out of that. I do very little psychotherapy now, and eventually I probably will do none. But um, I love helping people learn about light and how being connected to the Earth's frequencies is what really basically is giving us our energy to survive and thrive. And if we don't have that connection, then we're going to suffer somehow. Even if people seem fine, there's going to be some impact from that. So then I was searching for more training and more refining of my skills, and I then signed up for homeopathy and met Vanessa. And then we've been collaborating ever since in our podcast. And homeopathy, interestingly, was one of the pivotal factors in me really making a major transition in my life. So leaving a relationship that wasn't as fulfilling and didn't really match who I'd evolved to be. And so I had always had, because of a lot of neglect when I was young, this, it's very common, like a fear of being alone. And people think it's like, oh, what's wrong with you? Like, this is a legitimate thing that's super, super terrifying for people who don't have a safe connection or enough safe connections. And so, but I launched, I feel like I launched when I was 55 or whatever. I'm like, yay, I'm finally growing up. So homeopathy actually is what helped move the needle for me on that as well. So long story short, that's more how I got here.
Guys, thanks for these stories. They're so there. I can relate to them, and I can relate also in my own story of not being safe on this planet, really feeling that as a young person. So I'm very curious though. You've been talking about the circadian biology. To be honest with you, I can imagine what it is because I get it. The earth is, we need to, the earth can help us to realign, can help us with, our with the negative and the positive to like a battery, to recharge. But I'm curious if you can, one of you or both of you can explain it to the audience because I think it sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, and when we have artificial light on at night, Kathleen, thing is people don't realize, we think it's so innocuous, but it's actually so counter to our body's needs. And what Vanessa's saying is that when your cortisol is high, that means your insulin's going to be high, your blood sugar is going to be high. So even the little blue and green dots on devices around your room at night, or any leakage of light through the windows on the edges of the windows, is going to signal to your body and your brain like, oh, it's daytime, right? Or the light's coming. And so it keeps that cortisol high, then your blood sugar is high, and then your insulin's high. And so what happens is your body's going to grow stuff, and people are so confused about why we have such a high rate of hormonal cancers. Well, it's really quite clear. The literature is quite clear, and the scientific research that they've done is correlated with, I don't even think it's causal. It's like, it is causal. That's what's causing it. So we have to think about what our bodies really are designed to benefit from, and that's complete darkness at night. Moonlight it's not a problem because we're used to that. Firelight is not a problem, but it's these artificial lights, especially the blue and green, like Vanessa's saying, that are extremely damaging. They even damage your eyeballs. So people have no idea how destructive artificial light is at night, and blue light especially.
It's so crazy. So I knew that, like, for like we have, I went and got my glasses with a blue light protector, but maybe that's not enough.
No, those are so unfortunate because I have so many clients who say the same thing. And they're like, oh, but my doctor, my eye doctor said this will mitigate the blue light. I'm like, this does not, it is not enough. You said, Heather, you're wearing your Viva Rays, right? They need to be I'm not, because I use a technology on my computer called Iris. So my screen has no blue light on it or a green light. It's completely red. So that's what I do to mitigate it.
And that's called Iris.
Yeah, it's called Iris software, Iris software tech or Iris tech software. It's $15. You have it for life. It's a game changer. And I just my screen is completely red, so I don't have to worry about it. But Heather's wearing Viva Rays, which you can see that our glasses are this beautiful yellow tone, and that really is harmonizing for daytime use, the yellow lenses. But after the sun sets, we really want to avoid any kind of blue, and for really sensitive people, even green light in the environment. And it's not only our eyes that have this message, we have what are called melanopsin receptors. These are blue light detectors. They are on our eyes and on our skin, and they send messages to our brain about what to do. So we do want to make our homes darker at night. We need bright days, really bright days, which our indoor environment is not bright enough. We need to be outside.
Especially in the winter, right?
Yeah, but even it's really our indoor environments that are really not bright enough. It's so much brighter outside than it is indoors. In fact, another story I can share about my light journey is I used to be very photosensitive. So even if I was out in the early morning sunlight, I would need sunglasses because my eyes were so weak and deficient and not attuned to the correct light frequencies. I was attuned to artificial light. Now you throw on an artificial blue light, I'm like, no, where's my blue blockers? Right? But yeah, it's when I retrained my light environment or switching my light environment and getting that right, one of the things I did is I spent a lot of time out in morning sunlight, like I said, in evening sunlight, so I could build and re-strengthen and recalibrate my eyes and my skin to be used to the sun. And that was really, really important. And my skin was also extremely photosensitive. I used to break out in hives and rashes. I really had a light deficiency that was. It's almost like homeopathy, like cures like in this sense, because of the fact that when people are deficient in a certain light frequency, they're not getting the light. What they really need is that to fill that back in, right? That's what I needed. So we think we're like allergic to the sun, but what we really need is the sunlight to support us. Because I have so many clients who love it. I'm allergic to the sun, or I can't go outside in the sun because one of the things I was diagnosed with, which I didn't mention, was more like by a naturopathic doctor, was like mast cell activation syndrome. And a lot of those people are really sensitive to sunlight, but that is because they are so deficient and they are living these indoor lifestyles where they are getting all the improper signals. And what actually is happening is they are fundamentally dehydrating their body, living indoors. And then what happens is that activates what we call the cell danger response. Because it sends like the body's like in this, it's unsafe. It really goes back to safety, which is something that I really learned from Heather so much, like not only in the mental, emotional, but in the physical environment, because our mitochondria, which are really they are the powerhouse of the cells, but they are running the show. They're dictating our health or our disease, but they are environmental sensors. So they are telling us what's safe and not safe all the time. And live like safety is outdoors in nature, not in these artificial environments that we've created. That's where the safety is. This is unsafe signals, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, artificial light, artificial environments. These are all unsafe signals.
You're so right. It's crazy. I totally get it. And also, I live in the Netherlands where I will be honest with you, and it gets very dark. Like we just sometimes don't see the sun, and that's not good. So I remember getting a doctor looked at me and said, "Do you have such a low vitamin D? This is not normal." And I agree with you. I think many people have deficiencies of sunlight. So, wow, what a story. Heather, is there something you wanted to add to that? That is crazy.
My health crisis, Kathleen, when I was really the most debilitated with a chronic fatigue, I also had I don't think it was full-blown mast cell syndrome, but I had pretty serious problems with histamine intolerance. So I didn't know that at the time though. Like I didn't understand what was going on. I thought I just had bad allergies, but it was really, and then I didn't realize I was also perimenopause. So it was this confluence of all these things that just were really, really almost tearing me apart, right? So I finally realized years later, oh, that's what I have is this, because I would eat like cheese or have a glass of wine and I would just be destroyed. Like my face would be literally bright red. So I finally figured that out. But then in early, let's see, I think it was 2021, I actually lived in Mexico for 4 months in Baja. And so the UV index is a lot higher than what I was used to on the coast in California, Monterey. And so it was like, I don't know, what is it, 10 or 12 Vanessa maybe. I was out there and I already worked up what we call a solar callus. So that's a tan. So it's when your skin is adapted to the sun and it can now take higher UV, which everyone thinks is so horrible. Oh my God, the UV is going to kill you. It's actually, you have to know how to work up to being able to take in the nourishment from the UV, the solar yield. And so I had been doing that for 4 or 5 years. So when I went down there, this was amazing. Is my histamine issues? I couldn't eat any fish, chocolate, forget about bacon or any fermented foods. No, no, vinegar would just be so horrible. Even if I would take an enzyme they make to help you break it down, it was not enough. I go down there, I'm in the sun for maybe a couple weeks. None of that stuff bothers me. None of it. I could eat all the fish I wanted, all the chocolate, because this high UV was helping my body so much that, and it was processing and breaking down all of my histamine. I didn't have a problem. As soon as I went back 4 months later, it started to be a problem because it's, not as much sun. That is how powerful the sunlight is to help our bodies.
Yes, that's why I don't know if I'll stay in Holland my whole life all the time.
Well, so for you in the Netherlands, what I wanted to tell you about your low vitamin D status and your melatonin. Melatonin and vitamin D, they have a synchronistic relationship. So vitamin D is meant to be high when you're in high solar yielding environments, like at the equator or where I live in New York, where I have seasons, right? But for those of people who live in darker climates or not as sunny climates, their melatonin takes the place of vitamin D. It actually binds to the vitamin D receptor. So melatonin is actually the hormone that you need to focus on, which is the hormone of darkness. So that means getting a lot of darkness and also experiencing some cold, which helps your body make its own internal UV light. So that helps your body too.
And that's in the winter.
Yeah, if you're in that, if it's really dark and cold where you live, we need to adapt to the seasons like we used to when we didn't have chronic disease, because we used to be outside no matter what, and we used to honor the darkness and the light no matter what, because we didn't have all of these modern conveniences that took us away from that. Like that was just how we lived. We didn't have rubber sole shoes that took us away from connecting to the earth. We slept grounded, like we were always connected to nature, but we've moved away from that just because of the fact of all these modern conveniences that we have.
Totally. And we have done it so ignorantly. We have to wake up. I'm so glad we're discussing this. The other issue is I wondered in the evenings, like what you could say to the audience, like if they do have children, like I do understand, you have children, you finally get them into yourself. I remember when I had kids and I put them to bed, finally I had like 1 hour to myself and I just wanted to read and that's when I did all my research for my book. So what would you say to those people because they need the evenings maybe for this?
Well, there's easy adaptation. So we have high quality companies that Vanessa and I recommend to buy, say, for example, an orange or red light bulb. So in general, like LEDs are horrible for us, but it depends on what color they are. So if you get a no flicker orange or red light bulb, you can have those on, but you still don't want them to be too bright. So you are really in a darker environment, but you can have some light. And then the other issue that's important to keep in mind is you really want to have the light below you because any light that's coming from above, it's mimicking the sun. So your body's still going to think like, oh, there's light and it's daytime. And then your melatonin won't be as optimal. And the more health issues one has, you really do want to be more vigilant without being, too crazy where you're stressing yourself out because that's not helpful. But so you want to get those light bulbs. That's what I do at night, Kathleen. So I'll turn on a red light bulb that's facing away from me if it's not lower than me, like it's not shining at me. No overhead lights, keep it really dark.
So, and you wear those glasses.
I always wear my glasses. So after sunset, I mean, it's just not even, I don't even think about it. Like I'm so habituated to that. It's like, oh, glasses on. and I put on the orange ones. And then now that it's summertime, I'm up later because I'm very much in sync with the seasons. Like it's just the way that I live. So I still go to bed earlier. I still go to bed around 9 or 9:30 because I'm so tired. Like my body's like, it's time to go to bed. But so it's not that far. Like in the winter, you're having more darkness. In the summer, I'm up, there's less because I'm up later because it's light out later. But in the winter, it's more challenging because now you have 4 hours. You're like, what am I going to do? You know? So that's why you really need those blue blockers. And then the cool thing about Viva Rays, the company that Vanessa mentioned, like I have these on, is they have these magnetic things. You can just put another, they have a clip-on thing. So you just like pop it on. So it's super easy, right? And so I just put on the orange ones. And then if I really feel like I need extra melatonin, I'll put the red ones on an hour before bed. So Kathleen, all you really need is a couple light bulbs, or you can dim the lights you have, but the LEDs, I would say, don't use those at all. They're the color temperature is too white and too blue. It looks white, but it's really blue. So you don't want that. You want to have the, red tones, orange tones, and then put on your blue blockers. And I even wear a hat if I have to have the lights on, if I have company or something, they're like, I can't see. That happens a lot. I'll put a hat on so the hat will block the light that's above.
Yes, and we switched to all incandescent bulbs in our home. So incandescent have some sort of, they have infrared, and infrared is the most healing light frequency to our body. It's the most predominant light frequency from the sun. It's 50% all day long. So it's good to have those in your house instead. They have less flicker. They're more full spectrum. They're more mimicking sunlight. I'm sitting next to one right now. This is from Strainless Lighting. I'm sitting next to an incandescent light bulb that actually has heat. And we've traded like our modern light bulbs, the LEDs and fluorescents, they don't have any infrared in them anymore. So during the day, I use those, and then I do the same. Like it's very habitual, like Heather said, like you become so in sync to nature and so in sync to the sun. I haven't needed an alarm clock in years where I used to sleep in and be a night owl. I wake with the sun and I'm tired when it goes to sleep. In the winter, I am tired sooner and I sleep later because I live in New York, like I said. So it gets dark at like 4. And I put on my orange tone blue blockers, and I do use the incandescent bulbs a little bit. Sometimes I wear a hoodie. I'll wear a sweatshirt with a hoodie on top, like I often do. But my kids and stuff, they're adapted to a lot of this too, and they wear blue blockers and they have incandescents. My son, my youngest, he's like, Mom, I was reading. He reads in his room next to a red light bulb. I have a red light bulb with a lamp in my room. I read to that. So I do a lot of reading at night before bed. I usually kind of hunker down and go in my cave for a couple of hours before I want to go to bed, maybe an hour or so, and I will read. I can read and do research that way, just none on the computer. Now, if I have to be on my computer, I am making sure that I'm using Iris and it's in the red mode, which is called sleep mode. And I wear my blue blockers, and I try not to do that too late into the evening because I don't want to keep my body stimulated. We're doing too much work. I want to do something more restorative to get my body ready for sleep. And then there's the other conversation that, Heather and I both have hardwired our devices. So I'm not bombarding my body with non-native EMFs as well, not non-native electromagnetic frequencies that are not from nature, like Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. We are using hardwired internet. So there's no Wi-Fi, there's no Bluetooth, there's none of that, which does cut down on that kind of effect on our body as well, because that has an effect as well. It's a form of light that we just don't see, and our body does pick up on that energy and frequency, and it does send different signals that could be stressing our body out a little bit, raising our cortisol, suppressing our melatonin, keeping our body in this kind of hyper arousal sympathetic dominant state. I do recommend to clients to turn Wi-Fi off at night in their home as another really good thing while they're sleeping.
That is so important. I totally agree. And get your devices out of your bedroom. I mean, there's all these kind of things. Yeah. So we do have a lot of, I think, what you're saying, and I really think as humanity right now has to look at this because why are we having so many allergies? Why are we having so much chronic illness? Obviously, we're out of sync with nature, and if we go away and we're in the country, we just feel better. I mean, let's be real. Why? So I think it's because of this. We're suddenly walking outside with our bare feet and being camping or whatever, and then we just feel differently. So I love this. So thank you for sharing this. But I am very curious about the classical homeopathy because I believe in it. I've seen it with my own family. But I'm just curious though, what, like in general, let's talk about, you were saying you teach this quantum biology. Obviously, they're related. How would you describe the science? Because I think that's so important.
Well, I think with homeopathy, just like quantum biology, it's all frequency based, right? I look at homeopathy as the ultimate frequency medicine. So nature's just natural, then homeopathy is created by man, but it's the most ultimately quantum medicine because it's all frequency based. So we take a substance, it can be plant, mineral, or even mammal substance, and then what we use is interesting is that and they came across this early on, right? Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, he didn't know exactly the science behind it. I mean, he was so intuitive and in touch with nature. So the energy of that substance that gets imprinted in like a medium, so that would be maybe a mother tincture in the beginning, the energetic frequencies of that substance are transmitted via the water. Right. So you have that extraction of the substance, I mean, of the frequency that's imprinted in that medium. That is then, they take then one part of that and put it into some more water and then they shake it. It's called succussion. So it's 10 times or however many times, right? So they're basically then imprinting it in that water. And then they keep diluting it that way. And it's interesting, Kathleen, because the more dilute, and this is such a like a mind struggle for people to understand, the stronger the energetic resonance of that original substance. And that's really hard, I think, for people to understand if they don't like know about frequencies and quantum physics and all that. So what happens is the whatever that original substance, like in its raw form, if that were ingested, we're subjected to it, then whatever symptoms that evokes or elicits in maybe large enough quantities, they call that approving. Like what happens if you eat too much onions or I don't know, whatever, anything, it could be anything, right? What happens? And I'm talking about a large quantity, right? But some things are more poisonous, some things are less or benign. But so we take those symptoms that would be elicited by that substance, and then we match it to the totality of symptoms that someone's experiencing. What are they most resonant with of that original substance? So then what happens is the whatever that substance, the impact of it would be, it starts to wake up what we call your vital force. So your immune system, your body's energy, all of that to then basically start the healing process because there's so much suppression with the way we've addressed our health and doing things that actually interrupt our body's own healing processes, that then the homeopathic remedy starts to kick in the body's own natural healing ability and continue on with that healing process. So Vanessa, you can fill in if I missed anything.
Yeah, homeopathy, it's not, the magic is not in homeopathy. The magic is in you. I always say that because it's the catalyst or the nudge, but it's getting the right remedy that really is going to resonate with you. And that's the most important piece to homeopathy is getting that right remedy. So it works on the principle of like cures like. And Samuel Hahnemann is the founder of homeopathy, but he's not the one who originally found that. That's actually been around since Hippocrates' time. It's a very old logic and very scientific that like cures like. It's natural in our world, right? So what Hahnemann did is he was a medical doctor and he came across, he was actually left the medical field because he was just so disheartened with the way that they were, bloodletting and using mercury and harming patients and they weren't getting better. And he's like, this is not for me. This is not who I want to be. So he actually was reading medical texts. He used to translate. He spoke many different languages. So he was translating medical texts and he came across a text about cinchona bark, which is the remedy China officinalis, and that's made from Peruvian bark. And he noticed that if people took China or this cinchona bark, Peruvian bark, that they would get the symptoms of malaria. And he figured, well, can I cure malaria with it? And first, his first proving was on himself. He took cinchona, he took the Peruvian bark, he ingested it in the crude form, not in a potent size, not in homeopathic dilution. He took it in the crude substance, and he developed the symptoms of malaria. And then he was like, so then he started like using this to help cure people with malaria, which would help, but it was also toxic, right? Because it's it does work in like cures like, but you don't want to give these substances in their crude form because technically they are toxics to the body. Like we use arsenic amalgam, which is arsenic, and mercury and sulfur. Like these things can be too much, or sepia, which is the ink of the cuttlefish. That can, if you ingest that in the crude form, it's going to give you what we call side effects, which is exactly what happens with medications. We have side effects. And actually, a lot of the medications that we take in allopathy are actually the same substances we use in homeopathy, except here's the amazing thing that Hanuman, his gift to the world, was that he did what Heather was explaining before, is he decided, well, what happens if I dilute this? So there's less of the original substance in here, and I'll have less side effects. So he kept diluting the remedies down. So say he made that mother tincture, he took 1 drop and he put it into 99 drops of water. He said, okay, this is what we call a 1C. And he would keep testing this. And eventually he would make the potencies higher and higher. He kept diluting it more and more and more. And the more he diluted, the more potent and the more effective they were, and the less of these aggravations, as he called them, or the less of these toxic side effects he would have. And he had great success. And that's his gift. I like people call him the founder of homeopathy, but his gift is the preparation of the medicine, the ultra dilution and succussion. The succussion of the remedy in between dilutions is how we awake the energy. And I wanted to piggyback also on how Heather said water is the medium, which if you understand water, and this is a really big topic, water has this amazing ability to hold energy, frequency, and vibration. It's actually conscious. It actually picks up on what you say. If you put your water bottle or what it's near, the frequencies it's near, next to, a Wi-Fi router, it signal that the water is going to become incoherent. It's going to be ugly inside if you took a photographic memory basically, or an imprint, you're going to see that. So water is always picking up on energy, and people like Veda Austin, I don't know if you know her, or Dr. Emoto, they have proven this before. So Dr. Emoto would, take his water and he would say like mean words to the water, and it would, he'd then take some sort of image of that water and it would be all distorted, or he put it next to like rap music, or really crude language in the music, same thing would happen. But if he said loving kind thoughts to the water, right, that would shift that and make it beautiful, coherent structure. So homeopathy is just that same thing. It's just taking, the water is carrying the energy and the frequency. It carries an energetic imprint. And Veda Austin, who I was saying before, she has this amazing freezing technique where she's actually taken these remedies and she's used her freezing technique to show the image that it would show. So say for example, apis, which is made from the honeybee. She has this beautiful image of the homeopathic remedy apis frozen in water, showing the energetic imprint. And the print looks like, the image looks like a honeybee. It's like Nux vomica looks like a nut because it's the poison nut. Or like you can see like zinc is in there and it looks like a mineral. Like it's just really incredible. So it just proves the fact that the water is the medium that's carrying the energy and information. And then if you want to take it a step further, we are 99% water, 99.9% water by molecular structure. We are lined with what's called exclusion zone water, or fourth phase water. So we are literally a walking antenna that picks up on energy and information. So the homeopathic remedy is an energetic imprint of a substance from nature that we can use to support people's healing and catalyze people's healing. But then when it resonates, and it only works if you resonates and has the right remedy, it's going to, that frequency will imprint on our exclusion zone water, and then that information is then carried thus through the body, because exclusion zone water lines every hydrophilic surface in the body, which is basically everything. And it just, that information is carried and transmitted through water. So water is really where all of that information is being held. So it's amazing.
It's so beautiful. I always feel that when I take a bath, that I'm the closest to whatever source we come from. But I think, yeah, we are the water planet. We are mostly water, so it makes sense, And I like the idea of like treats light. So I'm curious how you've come up with, like, first of all, let's talk about who you treat, what kind of people, what would they have, and then also how do you know what the right remedy is? So I just love you to address that.
Sure. Basically, homeopathy can treat everything. I mean, they have there's different schools of thought. I mean, there's the more classic traditional approach, and then there's more of a, I don't know if progressive is the right word.
Practical. They call it practical.
Thank you. So it's called practical. So they're a little more ambitious and open with their prescribing and the remedies they make as well. They can make remedies for pretty much anything. They have a golden spiral remedy that Vanessa and I are really curious about. They have remedies to help with jab poisoning. They have remedies for like all kinds of stuff, right, Vanessa?
Like, what about things like diabetes, ADHD, autism?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of homeopaths who specialize in autism, but we don't necessarily have like this is the remedy for autism. How it works, Kathleen, is we want to it's really holistic. So we're going to look at the totality of the being of the person. We look at their actual family history generationally. We look at their mental, emotional. That's really, really important. We look at their early life experiences. That's also very important. What is the etiology? What has informed this being's experience and their development? And how did they get to be who they are? So it's not like just looking at their medical symptoms. It's more about what is this person's energy like and their how what they have experienced and what they are experiencing is affecting them on every level. So of course we look at the physical symptoms, right? We want to look at how is their body trying to manage whatever has occurred. In other words, what's being blocked. Something's blocking their energy, and the body is doing it the best it can to adapt to all of these influences energetically and physiologically. So we want to look at the physical symptoms and then we want to look at the mental emotional symptoms, keeping in mind, like I said, all of these other factors. So there's a lot of information we are taking in, and that's why homeopathy is not like allopathy, where it's this sort of how do you call it, the conveyor belt kind of approach where 5 or 10 minutes.
Right. So like if like for like example, like a UTI, everybody's gonna get the same antibiotic, right? Or strep throat, everybody's gonna get the same antibiotic. But if you came to one of us for strep throat, we're gonna ask you a lot of questions about first of all, what happened before, like looking for possible triggers. Were you outside in cold wind? Did you get your feet wet? Like, I mean, there's so many like odd things we would ask. Like, and then like we're also gonna ask you like about your fears. And people are like, what does that mean? What is that? Your fear of snakes actually leads me to a different remedy, like a certain remedy for strep throat, or like we're asking you all these questions and about the different modalities. What makes it better? What makes it worse? What makes it, all of these, it's the question asking that leads to the right remedy for you, because we're looking in our material medica, which is like, or when we're repertizing the case. So our material medica is like a giant book of all these different remedies and what it helps. And it gives us the modalities, right? Of how it feels better and how it feels worse, and what are the triggers that it could have been, or all these things. So it's really the question asking that leads us to the right remedy for you. It's not generic.
It's not like you say, oh, if a person has diabetes, because it's always different.
There's going to be a different trigger. Like take diabetes, for example, that's a great example. So diabetes can manifest in many different ways. First of all, it's going to manifest from the energetic blueprint that you were passed down with, right? So what were you born with, right, is going to make a difference, like ancestrally, genetically, because for something to manifest, you have to have this genetic predisposition. And that does not mean genes are our destiny, because they're not, because we can turn genes on and off through circadian biology. We can turn it off through emotional work. We can turn it off through homeopathy, right? There are many things, but diabetes is a great example. So one of the people who commonly develops diabetes is after grief. Okay, so they can get diabetes after grief. So they will be have a grief, and then they will get into this chronic fatigue state. Well, they'll definitely want a lot of fruity, juicy things, and then they will start losing their hair, and they will also have a lot of diarrhea, and will have diabetes after grief. So the grief was the impetus. Okay, so that's one remedy. That's one completely different remedy. There's also a different remedy who can develop diabetes, who is an extreme people pleaser. They have no boundaries. They have an intense desire for chocolate. Everybody comes first and they come last every single time. So the reason why they develop more diabetes is because of the fact that they are just energetically not taking care of themselves. They don't know how to say no. They don't know how to put up any boundaries. They don't know how to, they're usually abused. Typically, they're usually in battered women who are in very difficult relationships. So abuse could have been the trigger as well to the diabetes. So you see how these are complete different reasons of why somebody developed diabetes. I mean, I can go further, but
No, I understand. I think it's clear that that's why they need a consult with you, and then they need to, and so you both treat people, I assume not just locally, right? People can have online sessions with you and you can their remedy. Oh, that's wonderful. And yeah, because there are people all over the world that are students that are having problems with their health and literally, I'm telling you, we have a lot. And so if you guys are listening, you guys can get a hold of either Heather or Vanessa, I'm sure, and get help. But I feel like this is so important that you understand how bio-individual it is. Like, and the thing is, what I know about it is if you've got the right remedy, you can even have a reaction, right? Is that true?
As the remedy is helping your immune system to wake up and start to resume the healing process or begin it, then that's going to manifest as some kind of what we call aggravation, which is such an amazing thing that we celebrate, even though people might be upset about it. For example, if early on somebody had some skin issues and then they put a suppressive ointment on, which means that it's going to just basically inhibit or halt your body's process that it was engaged in. And skin is the largest organ of elimination. And whatever your body is bogged down with, it's going to just eject through the skin, like, whoop, it's out. And we don't like it because our ego's like, oh my God, I look awful, which I totally get. And so we'll do whatever we can to get rid of it, plus the discomfort of itching or whatever, what have you. But however, that just interfered with your body's process. And so we give a remedy, and then there are going to be some aggravations. Sometimes they're minor, maybe sometimes they're a little bit more, but they're not always prolonged. Sometimes it's just a couple days. It's all very unique. It depends on the individual. So then that skin issue might return, and that's a really good sign. It means your body's actually able to, right, increase its capacity to heal itself. And so that's called an aggravation. And then thereafter, you're going to have an amelioration, meaning things now are settling down because your body's like, whew, we got that pushed out. We took care of that. And that's up leveling your health, actually. Because here's the thing, Kathleen, if people think, oh, I never get sick. I never get sick, and I don't know the last time I had a high fever. That's actually a really not a good sign. That means your body hasn't been able to mount a healing response to some kind of pathogen or whatever it needed to do to expel through heating itself up internally. And not having a fever for many years is actually correlated with cancer. So that's because there's so many suppressive things that can happen. It could be trauma because you're frozen, you've got blockages inside from unprocessed, emotion. It could be things like shock. It could be a lot of times it's the jabs, that kind of thing is super suppressive. All the allopathic medication is suppressive. People pop in, aspirin and all these things or whatever. Like, I mean, I did that. It's like, we do these things. It's because it's painful and we have to go to work or have, deal with our kids. So it's understandable. I'm not trying to say that people are doing the wrong thing. It's just that we have to recognize, though, at some point how it's impacted our body's ability to do its own work. And that's the point of homeopathy is we want to work symbiotically with the body. We don't want to, just basically do something that is very, energetically in opposition to it. The one difference between the remedy that we pick as far as looking at chronic issues is that if somebody has an acute problem like a sudden fever or oh my gosh, hurt myself, that kind of thing, that's a little more standardized. And Vanessa has a wonderful course you can take on how to treat acute yourself because it's a little bit easier to discern what you need to use, right, Vanessa?
yeah. And our acutes are actually the healing. So that when Heather was saying about the fevers and all of that and never getting sick, people will think that as a badge of honor. And that's actually how we heal chronic disease. In fact, in the levels of health, level 4, There's these levels of health that George Vatukas, which is an amazing homeopath. I think it's 1 through 10. And level 4 is what happens a lot of times when the body is trying to avoid chronic disease. And at level 4, they will get tons of acutes because the acutes are how the body's trying to up level and heal and not get into chronic. Because once you get into chronic, you lose acutes, you lose fever, which is the case for all of my clients who've had chronic disease. I'm like, when was the last time you had a fever? Like, oh, I don't know. When do you get sick? No, not really. Or they get sick and they can't get over it. And it's just like this lingering long thing that never really resolves. That's not good either. So that's so important. And those aggravations are the healing. And anytime somebody has something coming out on the skin, that's really great because it's a great direction of cure. Like Heather mentioned, it's either that, okay, return of old symptoms that I've suppressed in the past that my body's actually going to heal now. Because just because you suppressed it with the cortisone doesn't mean it actually went away. It just moved deeper into the body. It moved deeper into an organ. So now the body's bringing it back to the surface to really heal, to really up level and really uproot and remove from your body. And a lot of times what will happen, and I can share some stories, if you healing stories of aggravations and how they heal. I share this story all the time because it's one of my favorites because it's with my own children. Because of course I use homeopathy with them and I can share them about myself as well and clients, but my middle son had really intense anxiety and panic attacks to the point that where they were debilitating. He wouldn't go to school. He was crying. His heart was racing. He was scared. You need to be by his side. And I wound up giving him 1 dose of the correct remedy, 1 dose, 1 time, a high potency, and he's never had another panic attack in his life. What he did have after he took the remedy was some fatigue, rest, which we need when to heal. We need to rest. It's like the body saying, okay, I need to heal and slow down. And he also got some alopecia areata, which is interesting because I dealt with that in my history as well. So listen, that's the connection, right? He's my child, right? He got a giant alopecia areata bald spot here. But that was the way how the brain is releasing it. It's like it's letting it out. And he's been well since. And then my other son, my youngest son, we had a lot of behavioral issues with him that we were working on healing. And he took a kind of a lot of remedies and we were trying to figure it out. And, he would get a little better and then he would develop these acutes and these fevers. And one of the acutes that he started developing was ear infections. And ear infections are what I had suppressed in the past. So here they are back to really heal. And as these ear infections have come back and I have given the right remedy for the ear infection, really based on his mental emotional picture during that time, not really on the physical symptoms, based on the mental emotional symptoms he exhibited while he had the ear infection come up. He developed fevers. He got these really intense ear infections. His behavior since getting those ear infections back and healing them correctly with homeopathy, his behavior has improved immensely and his emotional stability is better. His nervous system is more supported. I mean, I've seen my kids have more confidence, have more boundaries, have more emotional resilience. And it's like incredible to see those things.
I think it's so cool because I know I used it with my son when he had eczema. And then it worked. It was the only thing that would work, actually. And also, I really want you to address vaccines in the sense, and I'm just going to share this with you, because some people are still like, I have to give my children these vaccines, blah, blah, blah. And what happened was, I mean, I had one of my kids who had a reaction to the MMR, very severe. And then I was just devastated. So I didn't give her the next one. But now she's having children and she's asking the questions. And I'm just curious how, like, so what I ended up doing with my kids after they started having this is if I wanted to give a vaccine, I would give a remedy before and after, almost like to prepare them and to release it. But I just curious how you feel about this.
Well, I'll let Vanessa speak to it because I'm pretty much not on board with any of it anymore. Not for pets, not for humans. I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. But of course, there's always a nuanced situation. It depends on your situation that you're dealing with. And I'm always empathetic towards meeting people where they're at. But the thing is I myself had an injury, a jab injury. So that's part of my story, which we didn't really share because there's a lot when you have a health crash like I had, it's not just one root cause, it's root causes. It is always root causes. I put myself in a very debilitated state from chronic dieting, chronic exercising, living an indoor lifestyle, a lot of perfectionism, a lot of stress. All of those things were impetuses. And then I put this thing in my body that my body did not like. And it really it's really like an assault to the system is the best way to describe it. And it's one of the most suppressive things that we can do to our system. And the first one, I noticed some symptoms, but then I had to have a second one. And the crash experience was like nothing I had ever experienced in my entire life before. I mean, suicidal depression, panic attacks, severe joint pain, diarrhea, severe chronic pain. That's when the chronic insomnia developed. I had to leave my job. I was a public school teacher. I taught special ed children for 15 years, and I am a very I'm an a service person. You could see that with me. I like to serve. And I felt like I could not serve my children in the way that was right because I was literally having a panic attack in the middle of lessons, or having a depressive crying fit in the middle of lessons, or just being in such debilitating pain that I couldn't serve them. So yes, I'm very against using those, and they're very suppressive.
And also for the baby, also for the childhood ones, particularly.
And I want to just say two other things is that A, if you do need them and you had an injury, homeopathy is amazing at removing that. In fact, there was I honestly, since that injury, I did not feel like myself for at least a year. And there was a remedy I took. It wasn't the first remedy I took. I think it was the third remedy that my homeopath had prescribed me. And I had a activation of the immune system where I had insomnia and I had some depression come back up that I wasn't experiencing. And then about 3 weeks later, I was like, I feel like me. Like I feel like me, like some sort of dark cloud was lifted or veil was lifted. And my mother I was at her house like a week later, and she was like, you're acting like Vanessa. And I'm like, I feel like Vanessa. Like I was back to my happy, bubbly, normal personality. Like there was this fog that was lifted. So I do believe that I have removed that issue, at least greatly, because I do believe that homeopathy can fix it. But the other thing I want to say about it is that we are supposed to experience these epidemics. And when we experience these epidemics as children, like smallpox or whatever it is, chicken pox or all these things, we actually get stronger. If you have epidemics as a child, if you were exposed to them and you move through them, like measles, mumps, whatever, because most of the time you will move through them without having any problems, you have a less likely chance of having chronic illness when you get older and autoimmunity. So this is a way that the terrain and the immune system is strengthened through these illnesses. We cannot fear symptoms. We have got to such a society where we fear everything and we got to suppress it right away because God forbid we miss a day at work and God forbid we have to stay home and rest and drink chicken and have bone broth. We don't allow our bodies to move through things to up level. How you up level is through the acute illness, because on the other side of that acute illness, you will have a health upgrade. So by removing these epidemics and just vaccinating, all these things away, we have created a sicker society.
You have to somehow fight the system in a way because I know in the Netherlands they are very strict about not even allowing you to have your child admitted to school without childhood vaccine.
I've had clients, Kathleen, who literally moved out of California to a different state in order to have their medical freedom because California was not even allowing the religious exemptions anymore. And you don't want to, and then you have no other recourse. You have to move if you don't want to have your kids, and, I don't know how it is there, but the reason we're using the word jabbed is because if you wanted to put this on YouTube, it would get flagged and I've already had two infractions from them. So there's a lot of political and monetary influence, as you know. And to me, that just all sounds very sketchy. Like, why do you have free flu shots? Like, nothing is free. So I don't want to get conspiracy, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, what is the deal?
I'm on the same page, but it took me years. I had to see the kids have trouble. My kids have trouble from them. I saw it over and over again. So I had to learn the hard way, but I'm thinking, but then I eventually would use a classical homeopathy doctor here to if I wanted to give something to give them if I had to, like for school.
Prophylactically.
Yeah, I would give it prophylactically or even before surgery, I would give it. and then afterward. And it really helped.
It should help. It should help ease it a little bit, for sure.
But it's interesting when you think of the history, Kathleen, because I saw this clip from the, what was it called? The Brady Bunch, I think. And one of the one of the episodes was one of the kids had gotten, I can't remember if it's measles or mumps.
Measles or mumps or one of those ones.
And they go home and they're like, oh, okay, no big deal. We just have to stay home for a couple of days. And it was like non-issue, right? And then you can see these older advertisements or posters or whatever they are, and they say things like, oh, that they're, like they were fighting against it. People knew. They knew that this was poison, and they were rallying, and they were, trying to band together, but somehow we were overcome.
The new generation is waking up. I think they're asking critical questions. You hope they don't have to have as many terrible things happen, because we do have the consequence that can be terrible. Let's be real. So, and ADHD, like, I don't believe that that is a bad thing, or some forms of autism, I don't, but some severe things I do believe could be a consequence from all the environmental problems. And one of them is this. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so I'm so delighted with this. I just feel like you guys are doing amazing work. I just wanted to say, because I've kept you already over an hour, but I'm curious if there's anything else you want to add about it, because there's probably so many ideas. Like, I love the biology. I love the understanding of the science. I love the idea that it's getting more traction and more people are seeking this out. Um, yeah, just any other things you'd like to tell the audience about this work? 'Cause
Well, I'll say some final thoughts. All of this is in service to our spiritual experience, in my opinion. Like, it's not just about going to work. It's not just about being able to do things, right? Our health is in service to having an elevated experience of life. So, how much are you enjoying your life? How much are you laughing? How much are you being able to be vulnerable? How safe do you feel in your body? All of those things really matter. So that's really what I'm attending to, is your spirit, right? Your soul, and helping to enlighten that and lighten up your experience, because if people aren't happy, their health is going to suffer, right? And so it's just kind of this catch 22. What do you attend to first? You have to look at all of it and think about what it is that you want to experience in your life. And so the thing is I think when we have a lot of symptoms, also, it's because we haven't been actually paying attention to what it is deep down that we really need or want. So whether that be rest, or whether that be to change your career, whether that be to leave a relationship, I don't know. It's just that, are you experiencing what you want to experience based on your values and your soul's calling? And so that's how I look at all of this. And so I invite people to really consider that it's really all about healing that.
I mean, I would just say that healing is possible. I think that people sometimes they don't see that. I know what it feels like to be in that such dark place where you're just like, and you've tried everything and you're just lost and alone and scared. Like, I've totally been there. And you don't think that there's anything else, but you probably haven't tried everything. So I wouldn't give up on that. And I love marrying what we talked about before in the beginning with quantum biology and homeopathy. So I love to set the foundation with all the quantum biology, lifestyle practices and principles that we were talking about in the beginning, really honing in the environment and all of the things, relationships, food, nervous system support, like all of the things to just really put a beautiful foundation to a really good lifestyle that's supportive to health and healing. And then kind of seeing what's left over to support with homeopathy as well. Because when you have all those foundations in place, a lot of things can shift, right? And then you'll be like, oh, okay, what else is left over? And what's left over is usually some form of the two main like root causes of diseases that I see are suppression, and it's suppression on the physical layer or suppression on the mental emotional layer. So what are the medications that you've engaged with that are causing the trigger, or what are the suppressed emotions that you have, whether it's your grief or your sadness or your lack of boundaries or your people pleasing or your perfectionism? Like, how can we support all of those kinds of things? And these are not bad things. I've been in all these places. Like, it's just what we do, and these are what kind of turns on our genetic predispositions to diseases, right? So we want to support those and move through. And what Heather said so much about alignment is I found using these practices and principles, like, realigning with nature and circadian biology and using homeopathy has brought me back so much to alignment, in so many ways. And that dark time has brought me into this new person and this new light. So even though I feel like myself again, I'm a new version of me.
And better.
Yeah, so much better. And then I would also say, like, the stronger you entrain your field, the more you help and train weaker fields, right? So it's like the stronger help the weak. So the more we as a collective, support our health and healing in these holistic ways with nature and with homeopathy and things like this, we are then, building our own biofield and strengthening our own biofield, and then strength, and that has a ripple effect. It really does, has a quantum ripple effect. And so the more we can entrain that, the better it uplifts the entire collective. And then the other thing I would say is, if you're a parent, if you can support your children's acute with homeopathy instead of suppressive medications, that would be incredible, because the suppressive medications are going to lower the level of health, where homeopathy is going to up level their health. Now, of course, there's always nuance. There are times when we need to call on conventional medicine. I will say that there is, like, it's just necessary, because sometimes you can't get the right remedy, or we can't figure it out, or things happen, right? We're not always going to get it right, right? So we can have that as another fallback, and then we can always clean up with homeopathy as well. But another part of my story, which I didn't share, was I had chronic bladder infections as a child and very suppressed for years. I was on long-term antibiotics, and I always wonder what would my trajectory of my health would have been if that never took place. So I in my heart, as wanting to help children, I don't want children to be on antibiotics for 3 years for their strep throat or their UTIs or things like that. That is not healing. That's just causing more harm than it is ever good. So if we can uproot these things at a younger age, we're going to make that really big impact, because when you're younger, it's easier, and you're more resilient, and your mitochondria are working better and faster. So if we do it then, it really, really makes that impact. So I think everybody needs a homeopath on their team.
It's true. I saw what it did for my son. And by the way, he was one of those kids for asthma and chronic lung infections that was disaster.
Asthma and eczema, always the team, always.
And it was a disaster. And I really needed the classical homeopathy help so much. So I want to just end then. I mean, you've said your piece, but I want to just have you tell our audience what services you offer and everything that you can offer real quick, so that, and we'll have everything in the below description box.
Well, you can find me at my website. It's called enlightenedmood.com. And I help people with anything they want help with, basically around their health and their spirituality. So I can do individual sessions for people who want circadian biology and they want to just really zero in on those frequencies. And then I can help people with homeopathy if they're drawn to that and they resonate with that. And then I can help people just in general with general coaching and spiritual guidance. So I can help in any way for any issue, basically. And I work with adults. Like, I don't work with children, I work with adults. So
And the remedies, you can just send them then.
yeah, so what we do is when we find the remedy that's the best match for them, then we have them order them from certain really high quality homeopathic pharmacies. Yeah.
You can find me at brightlightwellnesscoach.com. That's my website. And of course, Heather and I run a podcast called the Quantum Health Connection. So you could check that out too if you want to learn more about our work. I'm on all socials. Bright Light Wellness is my name, and Healing Families with Homeopathy as well. And I do work with children. I work with anybody. And I'm open. I treat acutes, I treat chronic disease with homeopathy, but I also, of course, do health coaching. So I do circadian biology, or just lifestyle coaching. You can call it that. It's easier for people to understand. So I have packages of that. I have individual sessions or coaching packages. You can put those together. I have all different kinds of ways to work with me. I have different webinars that you could take. So if you want to just learn information on your own. So I have webinars on sunlight and circadian rhythm, and cellular hydration, and how to thrive in winter, and ancestral diet plans. And then I also have webinars on homeopathy. So how to treat acutes with homeopathy. You've got like different acute ailments that you want to support with homeopathy. You can learn, like ear infections or bladder infections or common childhood ailments. Or I have one on cell salts, which is another conversation. So yeah, they're all different. There are all different ways that I work with people. So you can find me there at brightlightwellnesscoach.com. And you can also marry the two, homeopathy and quantum, and the lifestyle stuff. So I have coaching packages where you can do both with me. And then I also teach a service called Nurture Your Nervous System, which is another topic to conversation, but it's these special, well, not special, but these rhythmic movements that support the nervous system and help move energy get energy flowing back in the right direction. So yeah, lots of offerings.
But I just want to say, you guys are fabulous. Like you're amazing, and I thank you really for your wisdom and your honesty today. Wow, it's just so refreshing, and I love your podcast, and I think you're just amazing. And I know we'll stay in touch. And I know I'm on this side of the ocean, so and you're there. And whenever you come to Holland or Amsterdam, look me up, please. But I thank you really from the bottom of my heart, and I'll be sending people to you. I don't. I think you guys are the real deal, and I really am grateful that I met you. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us and really appreciate your work as well. And your book was amazing and yeah, really appreciate you. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.